BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, you've downloaded a podcast of BBC Radio 4's The Food Programme. Welcome to our world, from cooking to culture, politics to pleasure. We hope you enjoy it. All right. We've just arrived in Madrid, and we're here because this is one of the countries around the Mediterranean that most loves and appreciates beans. So we've come to see what loving and appreciating and growing and celebrating beans is about. I mean, beans, which have meant poverty in Britain. You were hard up if you had to eat a lot of beans. It's not like that here, so I'm told.
Dried beans are a very big thing. I mean, legumes in general in Spain are a very, very big thing. Legumes to the Spanish are what pasta is to the Italians. I mean, they eat it every day. I mean, they really do taste amazing.
And play their part in making Spain the healthiest country in the world, according to the latest index on global health from Bloomberg. So in pursuit of bean secrets, producer Natalie Donovan and I have hitched a ride for a couple of days with Monica Linton.
Everybody is brought up on pulses from an early age. School menus will always have some sort of legume dish. Sometimes kids always get a little bit fed up with it, but legumes remain in everyday eating all their lives here in Spain.
Monica started importing food from Spain 34 years ago. This week, she's in Spain visiting her legumbres suppliers. She hasn't seen them since before the COVID pandemic, and they've had a very busy pandemic. But it's not COVID that brought us here. As you know, if you listened to last week's episode, my interest in beans was piqued a few months ago after I tried some chickpeas from a jar. Their flavour, which was so different to the ones I normally get from a tin, that it led me down a sort of rabbit hole.
First of all, it's sourcing the best quality beans, sourcing them from farms that grow for flavour and quality rather than yield.
Including beans in our diet, we know, has been linked with things like better overall gut health, because it nourishes them essentially, and that in turn allows the bacteria to do things like communicate to our immune system and support that.
I read this book which said to lose fat you need to stop eating so many carbs, and if you replace those carbs with beans you will lose weight. And it kind of worked.
You could poach these beans with a little bit of cured pancetta, for example, and that would flavour half a kilo of beans that's going to feed a lot of people. Cost of living squeeze as well. It's a big talking point at the moment. These go a long way.
They don't need any nitrogen, at least the peas and beans that we grow in the UK don't need any synthetic nitrogen applied to them. So they can meet their own nitrogen needs through a process called biological nitrogen fixation.
Try that. It's you've got umami, you've got everything coming through.
One of the best things I've ever eaten.
Makes you want to dig in.
My goodness. So, are we on the brink of a bean revival? Welcome to the Food Programme, that place for hungry minds. Well, the first thing we've done, apart from getting off the plane, is we've driven to a supermarket. And we're looking for beans. No, those aren't beans, those are nuts in jars. This supermarket is probably the equivalent of a Waitrose at home, a very big Waitrose. So a bit on the upmarket end of food shopping. Well, here we are. These are the dried beans. San Miguel from the Principado de Asturias. Pinta beans. Alubia Rinon. Blanca, white beans. Several varieties of garbanzos, chickpeas. Herman, who's driving us around very kindly. What's striking is there are so few beans in tins. In a British supermarket, 90% would be in tins.
Here in Spain, people like to see what they're buying. And also, what we usually do is buy the dry bean and then cook it ourselves, which is the tradition here.
Is that what you do?
Yeah.
That one you've just picked up, it's €3.35 for a kilo, and that one is £4.25. I mean, it's
about
£3 for a kilo.
A little bit less.
Yeah. I mean, those are really good prices, aren't they? That'd be nearly 2 kilos of cooked when you cook them.
Yeah.
Look at that. What? That one is £21 for 1 kilo. Now, what's special about those?
It's from Asturias, special for fabada. They are very limited production, very well selected.
We have to splash out before we go home. And then let's get to the jarred beans. Woohoo! Alubia blanca, organic ones. There are, again, 6 shelves stretching a couple of meters along. This is just the bean section of a good supermarket. We've driven more than 300 kilometers, about 200 miles north of Madrid, to a town called San Adrian in the Navarra region of Spain. And we've come to this town because it's famous for preserving vegetables mostly, but it's all concentrated here, and we're in, as you can hear, an industrial estate, which is where the Navarrico company is based, the largest processor of beans and other vegetables in the town, and where Monica Linton has been buying beans for decades.
The jarred ones that we buy from here, the raw material is grown in Salamanca, but they're produced here in such a way that is so respectful of the raw ingredient. They will only produce 1 batch at a time. They'll be very, very careful on what they source. They haven't been overcooked, so that the product is really consistent in the jar.
This isn't directly relevant, but as we were, you gave us a lift from, this drive from Madrid.
Yeah.
And we stopped in a motorway service station with lots of lorries outside.
Yes, that's right.
And we had lunch there, and it was so democratic. There was all these lorry drivers and office people. Everybody was gathered together, and there were white tablecloths, and
absolutely,
we had this fantastic lunch. Simple but delicious, and you don't get that kind of eating in Britain.
I mean, we had essentially a 4-course meal with the most incredible service, and we had what is one of the traditional things in Spain, particularly in the north, is to have a pulses dish as a starter. So we had a bowl of Tolosa beans with some pancetta and some black pudding in it.
But tiny amount of black pudding, tiny amount of pancetta.
Very small amount of flavourings.
Yeah.
And the majority, 90% of the dish is bean, and the juice and the stock that the beans produce when you cook them.
We did well.
They're cooking some chickpeas.
Oh, really? Monica says they're cooking chickpeas, so we're going to go down into the factory. We're being shown around by cousins Pachi Pastor and Paz Salcedo, whose grandparents started the company in the 1960s. Smells good. Where are these from?
These ones are from Andalusia, so Andalusia, the south of Spain.
Do you use any imported from outside Spain?
For conventional, no. For organic, yes. It's very difficult to find organic beans in Spain. It's changing. There are more and more. For example, you can find quite a bit of organic lentils.
It's a really interesting process. They're cooked, sent onto this shaking conveyor belt, then to this part of the machine where the imperfect ones are discarded, and then they whizzed over to a next line where they're being put into jars.
And then they put them the liquid, so it's water and salt in our case, and that's it. They will be closed and then they will be sterilized.
We've been through the entire factory and the half a mile of warehouses, and now we're back in the offices in the boardroom, meeting room. Patty is putting out different chickpeas. The first one is out of the tin we bought in the supermarket, and the second one is the Navarrico garbanzos. Monica, this is what you do all the time, so how would you decide what your company is going to stock?
Well, we would look for perfection in terms of every chickpea or every bean. Ideally would be perfect across the whole jar. The stock would be gelatinous slightly, without any additives or antioxidants. And then when you taste them, I mean, that is an incredible taste. Really, really, really dense and creamy. The skin's hardly there. It's hardly...
So the skin is not there. Yeah. Okay, let's try the one from the tin. Do you remember how much this cost, Natalie?
€2, was it? For the tin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've got no flavour, for a start. They've got a strange aftertaste, a bit like that sort of watery, metallic taste.
It's also much more floury.
Yeah. Whereas this is poles apart in terms of...
It's funny, isn't it? Because if you didn't know much about chickpeas, you'd think they're all the same, right?
Yeah.
Completely different. Wow. Given that this whole program is based on this photo that I posted on Instagram, we've just watched chickpeas being cooked and then put in jars and sterilized. What is the difference? Why do they taste better in jars than in tins?
In the production, in the sterilization, okay, it's different. Yes, it's different because the tin material is hard and needs more temperature to go in.
So what Patchy is explaining is that because they're actually in a tin, the heat from the autoclave takes longer to penetrate the tin, so hence tinned product has to be in the autoclave for longer.
But also, what's chosen to go into a tin is often a variety with much tougher skin, so it doesn't collapse.
So depending on the price point you're trying to achieve, if it's a price point that you want to keep low, you can only achieve that if you buy a cheaper raw material. And a cheaper raw material will have a thicker skin, break more easily, and potentially have almost no flavour. So we're about 15 minutes away. We are going to pick up Juan, and then we will follow him 2 kilometres down the road to where one of the farmers is sowing chickpea plants.
I am Juan Luis Jiménez. I am manager of Legumbres Montes. So we have a farmer who is working for us for the last 3 decades. His father was working with our last owner, who passed away 2 years ago at the age of 91, but he was working until he was 89.
So beans are good for you.
Yeah, this is our world.
The world around Salamanca, where more than 50 farmers sell their beans to Montes Legumbres, the company Juan runs. So how much land do you have under legumes?
El 75%
75% of the production of legumes in Spain are all grown here in Castilla y León. It's hard to say how many hectares are actually under cultivation because it's all in different pockets around lots of small villages.
We're not far from a highway, and it's very different from Britain. There are no hedgerows, so I don't quite know what divides one farmer's land from another. The farmer's getting out of his huge John Deere tractor. What are you doing?
Sembrando garbanzos. El garbanzo de Pedro
Oh, you're
Silvio.
sowing. There they are. Tiny, tiny chickpeas. Wow. Do you sow the same year after year in the same place, or you change crops?
Se van rotando.
So this year chickpeas, last year
Cereal.
Barley,
Bueno, algo
lentils,
más porque se echa
chickpeas.
trigo.
That's the
Yes.
rotation. Are chickpeas profitable?
Sí, porque luego de
So it nourishes the soil, which makes it better soil for the following crop. The wheat or whatever follows is a better crop.
So it's February 23rd. When will you pick the beans?
Pues en julio, último
The
de
end of
julio.
July. You need them to be dry before you harvest?
It has to be dried. In this area we have long winter and a short summer. That's what makes our product.
Is the weather changing? I mean, it's February 23rd today. It's not very cold.
We don't see a rain since the last... ¿Cuándo ha sido la última vez que ha llovido?
El 5 de enero.
3rd of January, about 3 litres.
If we don't see rain, we don't have a harvest.
Come harvest time, Perpetuo Benito, the farmer, will sell his crop to Legumbres Montes, who process and pack them for the supermarkets and for export.
With the Turkish machine, we can sell all the products, depends of the size, and with the optical or color machine, we classify by the color.
And so this is what you call the optical machine, which judges on colour and sends it in 2 different directions. Clever. The comparison that strikes me is it's a bit like having a small abattoir in a rural area that makes possible for farmers to do small scale, medium scale, mixed farming, because otherwise they could not move the animals to giant abattoirs, and these farmers around
so
here
here you get
could not go
traceability.
to a giant factory.
So you get, you know the origin, you can guarantee the origin, you can guarantee the calibre, and you can work with smaller growers. It keeps the local economy vibrant, and it keeps the calibre of the product where we want it to be and where they want it to be.
So it keeps jobs in this region?
Yeah, absolutely. The communities rely on agriculture for their living.
Companies like Legumbres Montes are part of the sort of infrastructure we're going to need if we want to get serious about growing great eating beans in the UK. Sheep, the first animals we've seen out in the fields.
Well, it's sheep cheese land as well, this
We're
area.
in sheep land.
Sheep.
We're now on a plain. What is it, the Salamanca Plain? It looks like there's a lot of cereal crops probably in this land. Is that right, Monica?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the high plateau of central Spain.
Lentils.
This is the beginning of lentils.
Yeah. Here we are in the very heart of the Armuña that names the lentils.
Eusebio Montes, one of the brothers who owns Legumbres Montes, is our guide. The Armuña lentils, named after this area, they're flat and pale green.
The lentils are planted in November because the soil is moist and humid. Look the root, and with the small grain that is fix the nitrogen to the earth.
You still have to use fertilizer, though, even though these fix nitrogen in the soil.
The farmer, yeah.
But
I
less.
Yeah.
So when are lentils harvested?
Middle of June till the 1st of July. It depends of the weather.
Eusebio Montes. So what sort of future is there in Spain for bean growers, with increasing numbers of competitors producing the cheap varieties springing up all over the world? Herman Arroyo, who's acting as our driver on this trip, has worked in the Spanish food industry for 25 years as a kind of forager working on a national scale, sourcing products for companies, including Brindisa. Does he, with a job that brings him into contact with producers as well as buyers, see young people still going into farming?
Farming is 24/7, 365 days a year. And young people don't really want to.
I mean, what we're seeing in Britain is young people wanting to be farmers, but they can't get the land. Or it's very difficult.
Here the land is very expensive. And if you need irrigation, then it's much more expensive. So it's no way that you can afford like 2-3 hectares that make your business, let's say, profitable, with no guarantee that the weather is going to be good.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, like 50 years ago, you knew that the spring was going to be spring, autumn was going to be autumn, winter, and summer. So for young people, it's much easier to be in an office with a computer.
Do you feel optimistic that the British will ever care about the source of beans? That they will ever feel the way a lot of people do now about coffee?
They should.
They should.
Yeah, because I mean the way we do it here is a very traditional way, and guarantees that the product is a safe product and it can be eaten with security. I mean, what the use of fertilizers or pesticides is completely regulated by the European Union, while other countries, they are using things that we have prohibited here many years ago.
Maybe the majority of people listening to this program, on the radio and podcasts, they will feel that beans, are just something starchy that you use to fill up. What could they learn from the kind of intense passion and geekiness, you might say, of the people we've been talking to in Spain?
We've been going through the bean world, let's say. What they have to realize is that the life expectation in Spain is over 80 years. We're eating healthy stuff, and beans obviously is one of them. My father is 84 today, and he's been...
Happy birthday, Herman's father.
He woke up very early this morning, and he's walked 3-4 kilometers to go to his church and return. And then he will go and have a glass of wine to celebrate. And I think that's the way things should be. I mean, you take care of the things you eat because it's the basic. If you eat bad, you will live
Patria.
Herman Arroyo. Heading back to Madrid from the plains of Salamanca, we encounter another layer of the bean trade.
The bigger size are from Mexico. This is Pedrosillano from Spain.
The small, nutty.
The small one.
Small one.
And if you see, medium size
And where are these from?
from United States.
Okay.
And this is the three kind of chickpeas more popular here in Spain.
We're in another of these vast 50, 60 foot high warehouses with stacks up to the ceiling.
My name is Mario Castellanos. I'm with my two brothers, the owners of the family company of pulses, José Castellanos e Hijos.
We have 25 kinds of beans, 4 kinds of chickpeas, and 6 kinds of lentils. We sold between 5-6 million tons per year.
Okay, where are these from?
This is from Canada.
This is lentils.
Lentils, small ones.
Canada. Next one.
White beans.
From where?
From Canada. Pinta. This is cranberry, Spanish.
Pinto.
Yes.
We saw them yesterday as well.
Yeah, we did.
I'm from Argentina. This is the popular white beans from Argentina.
Small white beans. 50% of Mario's Madrid business is made up of beans grown in Spain. He's small in comparison to other legume wholesalers, supplying independents as well as the supermarkets who want top quality beans. He's also the source for those jarred chickpeas I bought all those months ago from the Bold Bean Company. So where do the best beans come from?
The best beans are from Spain.
Do you say that because you're Spanish?
No. Farmers here, they have small hectares, small areas, small fields. The ground is very good for beans in the north of Spain, in León. It's not the same as Argentinian or United States or Canada, that they have thousands of hectares.
We began the idea for this program to look at the difference between beans in tins, beans in jars, and maybe dried beans. Which are the best?
Of course, always the dry, because in the jars or cans, they use chemical products.
Not all, though. We were in Navarico, there was just brine.
Because they use good quality, good beans. But many companies that sell to supermarkets, they want the cheaper pulses. To make good views in the can, they must use chemical products.
What, for color? For
color and for tasting.
In Spain itself, are the big sales in tins or jars or dry?
In jars.
In jars.
In jars.
We were up in Salamanca. We saw a lot of beans from small areas with the European Union geographical typica.
Yeah.
Is the market for the quality beans growing?
Yes. In Spain, there are some families. They don't want lentils from Canada. They prefer to pay a little bit more for this kind of pulses.
And what about the other European market? And as you said, you sent to Germany and UK and France. Is the market for quality growing there too?
No. They don't want to pay. They don't care if are from Spain or from United States or from Mexico or from where. They want good chickpeas at the good price.
We bought some tins very cheap, like 60p for a tin. Where do the beans that go into those tins, where are they from?
Must be from east of Asia, from Africa, Russia, from India. These countries, they start to produce chickpeas, but the quality still are not good. For canning and for jugs, sometimes are good, but for dry, no. Here in Spain, more than 100 towns make festivals of beans or chickpeas or lentils. Oof, they enjoy a lot. It's a big party. I was in Burgos in January. They cook black beans stew. The name is olla podrida. And for everybody, they give you a small plate, and as well they give you wine and bread. Here in Spain, we have many parties. It's amazing.
We should have more here, around beans. Can it ever be so? In our fields and on our plates, beyond the full English hummus and chili con carne. But have we answered my original question? Why do beans taste better from jars than tins? As Monica Linton and Hodmadods and Bold Beans all told me in their response to that Instagram post that started this exploration, it's a mix. It's variety, it's quality, it's care in processing, what everyone here calls respect for the bean, and its additives, which is what you seem to need at the cheapest end of the market to stop the beans disintegrating and to give them some taste. But if we want the ultimate bean experience, everyone here is agreed. Buy them dry, soak and cook. But so far in the UK, in spite of steady sales of cheap slow cookers and more expensive pressure cookers, which will give you from dry to ready in less than an hour, we don't seem to have time for that. But sometimes neither do the Spanish. Women have entered the workforce here in just the same way as in the UK, and men have not been rushing to the kitchen. But that's not ended up in our massive turn to ultra-processed foods. Spain's richest region is just one place where they found a way to keep up bean-eating traditions and in the process become the biggest buyer of Juan's dried beans from Montes.
I like to hope we could emulate what they do in Catalonia, where they have these bean market stalls where the pulses are cooked in the morning and then they'll be on sale for you to buy freshly as if you'd cooked them yourself. So they're not jarred or tinned or had anything long life done to them at all. They're done that morning and then you use them. You pan fry them with garlic and parsley to have with your butifarra sausage, or you make a chickpea and salt cod and spinach stew. And I've always wanted to do that in England.
How many times a week do you have legumes?
For example, I have white beans. In a couple of days with my mother, we will have chickpeas, pedrosillo chickpeas precisely. And I hope on Monday I have lentils. So maybe 3 times per week. Almost 4. Cooking pulses or legumes is my favorite time because there is the time when I spend with my mother. And there is a time that no matter how much time I am with her or how much time I am cooking that, because having this time with my mother, it's everything. And I have to say that, sorry.
I hope your mother hears the program.
Lovely fun.
Yes, I know.
But that's what's quite special about beans. It forces you to slow down. It's good, peaceful pastime.
Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more food programmes, then there's a treasure trove of them going back to 2007 on the BBC Radio 4 food programme website.
I thought it was going to be like, we have such a great friendship that we can talk about things that I can't talk about with anyone else, even my wife.
I can talk to you about things that I can't talk to my wife about, because when I try to talk to my wife about work, she just rolls her eyes.
I thought you were going to say, like, we're like astronauts, we're the only ones who've been to the moon, and no one else has seen what we've seen. I'm Louis Theroux, and if, like me, you enjoyed listening to John Ronson's Things Fell Apart podcast, you might also like this conversation where I ask him all about how he made it.
Funny, so you're conflict averse, I'm conflict averse, yet we spend our lives putting ourselves in very conflict heavy situations. Why is that, Louis?
That's How Things Fell Apart with John Ronson and Louis Theroux on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds.